Thank you, Vikram. So from the city, we now go to country. But Jameson Palesi, some of you know Jameson, we would have liked to have had him here, but he's speaking at a youth rally today. But it's a story that we want you to be familiar with and know. So Wayne was like, can we interview him? So we've got a little video clip we're going to show. Then I'm going to explain a little bit about the context Jameson's in. Then we'll watch the video clip. The recording that we did, it's not the highest quality, but it's going to work. But the quality is in the points that Jameson makes. So watch the video and explain some more. And Andrew, thank you for... I turned up this morning with Andrew, we've got this clip, we've got that PowerPoint, we've got this clip, we've got that and that. And I was running late and he was already had a million things on his plate, but he's very quietly and methodically gone about it. And appreciate that, Andrew. And so in a moment, we're going to see Jameson out at Dubbo. Does anyone know what Dubbo is? Because reality is some of you, when you get called into pastoral ministry by the church system, some of you will end up in the city, which is great. Some of you will end up in Dubbo. Or West Australia. And the reality is Jameson, he'd been at Fox Valley, he'd been at places that were all there's where youth are, and he was very keen to get to youth ministry, ends up at Dubbo. When you see his story, you'll just see how he's methodically worked about being at Dubbo. And to give you some background, after a year, Jameson got called to be a youth director. And guess what he said? No, because I'm here in Dubbo. You don't always get to say no to your conference, but if you can explain to them the reason why you feel God's put you in a spot and why it needs to be there, you're going to stay there. So he stayed there for 6 years, and you'll get that in a moment. How are we going, Andrew? Well, I think we're good. Well, let's try the first video and see how we go.
Dubbo is basically the central hub of the West. It's the roundabout where everyone usually passes by. Here in Dubbo, they always make eye contact with you, hoping that you'll say g'day to them. It's definitely a good little town. When I first came to Dubbo, the moment I was welcomed at the door, I started to fall in love with the church. And I know that Dubbo has had a big history in terms of the people. When I got to meet them, I got to understand them. And as they continued to share the story with me, I just love their vulnerability. I love their honesty. I love their willingness to change, willingness to grow. And it's just really, really helped me grow a close bond with this church. This group we're called the Back to Back Brotherhood. I was introduced to these two young islanders here in town, came straight from NZ. And, we started talking and I said to them, hey, what are you guys' thoughts about starting up a Bible study group? And they said, yeah, hey, that'd be great. I asked them, do you guys have a Bible? And they said, no, we don't have a Bible. Well, hey, I'll bring a Bible for you guys next Bible study. And the Bible that I brought them? Well, it was a World Changers Bible. After 1 week, they invited another friend. And then I asked him, hey, do you have a Bible? He says, nah, I've never owned a Bible before. Well, hey, I've got a Bible for you. Went to my car, grabbed the World Changers Bible, laid it in his hands. Now all four of us have the same version. We've had so many guys come through this group, and I give them all a Bible. And now we journey as a brotherhood together. Oh.
This kid, man, it's a huge transformation. He said to me, Jay, I came to Australia just to party hard and to play rugby. I never thought in my life I would be part of a Bible study group. My name's Robert Murphy, born in New Zealand, Auckland, Tongan background. Grew up in footy back in New Zealand, played rugby union first. Was lucky enough to get a contract to come over to Sydney, and played for the Bulldogs under 20s and New South Wales hub team. had a bit of trouble here, but sent back in, was in Australia for 2 years. My manager, the agent, he hit me up, asked me if I was keen to come back over. And I start fresh, start a new journey, free again, and yeah, loving it. So, I met Jay when I first came to Dubbo. I was at a pub once, and the security guard at the pub, he was just like, and he said, oh man, there's one guy on the shoot you. And I was like, who's that? He's like, I don't know Jay, he's a pastor. He came with Jay to my house. And I met Jay, really energetic, really welcoming me, really happy. I told myself, I want to start surrounding myself with the right people. Jay wanted to start up a little quick board back brotherhood, talking about like having a close relationship with God. It's been over a year now since we've been hanging around with these boys. It started off with 3 of us. Now, there's a lot of love changed, just want to look good. The power of God being sent on the Spirit changed all of us. Earlier this year, I was part of the Replanting convention to the camp, my first ever church camp I've been to, and it was just amazing. You can never had the experience before. God is just, he's just transforming lives, not just in these boys, but also through them, and influencing those around them. And those around them are now asking, hey, what's the difference? What's the change here? This is like, I'm home away from home. I wanna go out there and help someone else's life. Yeah, lead it out of the community. Yeah, lead it out wherever God takes me next.
That's Dubbo. And so there's Jay. Now this is a couple of years ago where this one got done. So Jay turns up in Dubbo. There's a bunch of older people there, and now I'm going to put Andrew on the spot again so you can get a PowerPoint picture. Because I'm going to show you a PowerPoint picture of when I was at Dubbo at the start of this year. So Jay turns up in Dubbo. Dubbo, like many country towns, is struggling to support, struggling to have the church be there at that point. And but the other PowerPoint, Andrew, there's another. No, that's okay. I'm sorry. You're doing great. So there's Dubbo is a bunch of older people. The church is struggling to even stay open, and I was talking about what are we going to do with Dubbo. This is the start of the year. So there's Dubbo, the worship service. If you go to the next slide, Andrew, take a look at that. That's Dubbo Church this year. That's how it's going to be today. Now over on the other side there, you'll see the guy with the little girl. Behind is an older lady sitting next to the young fella. This older lady, she's the head elder of Dubbo. And I met her at the lunchtime, and I'm like, tell me a story. She said, well, almost out of here. There's a bunch of old people who come here on us out. Some weeks would work, some weeks would open, some weeks it wouldn't be open. But Jay turns up, and Jay challenges. He said, well, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Are we going to close the church, or are we going to change Dubbo? And now, when Jay tells the story in a moment, you'll see that it wasn't just, let's get to and change everything. Jay actually started that brotherhood in his home, first of all, because he said the church wasn't ready for them yet. But at the same time, he's working with the church, and you'll see there's people from his brotherhood group there now, and that doesn't capture everybody in worship service that day. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, you can plant churches in already established country churches. Where they have died, is it possible to give birth again? When I often say about new churches, rebirthing churches, wherever there's people and wherever there's towns, there's places and opportunities to use your calling and giftedness to transform lives. So I'm going to go to an interview that I did with Jay this week. Now, as I go through this, there's principles I picked out of this. Jay told his story. So focus on some of the principles, and think of what principles are applicable to any context of church planting. And thank you, Andrew, if we go with that little interview, and we'll see how that goes.
Jameson, thanks for joining us. You've got a lot going on, but appreciate you making the time to catch up. So at the Mission Symposium, talking to Avondale students, where, 5-6 years ago, same thing for you.
Yeah.
Get a call to Dubbo. First of all, where's Dubbo?
Man, that was my question too. So Dubbo, it's I guess if you look at just the southern part of New South Wales, we're probably like, oh man, how do I explain it? I just usually say to people, here's Sydney, Newcastle, go straight in, go up a bit, bam, that's Dubbo. So from Avondale, it's about 4.5 hours, 4.5, yeah, around 4.5 hours away.
So Jameson, I know you've been heavily involved in Fox Valley Church and know the youth scene and everything. You get to Dubbo, and what do you find?
Oh man, I remember walking through the doors, greeted by one of the elders there, Kerry Hawkins, just really great guy, big smile. I walk in, and the first thing I see is that caught my eye was just a sea of gray hairs. I'm standing from the back, and I was like, oh wow, and there were no young people, because that's the first thing I like to look for is young people, children. And there was only about 3 kids at the time, and there was no youth. And for someone who, like me, who I'm so passionate about youth, to walk into a church where there were none, I'm talking zero. It was kind of an eye opener. And later on, I realized, okay, maybe this is one of the reasons why God has brought me here. But yeah, just a lot. Like, it was a lot of them were older, and as I spent some time there as well, like, it was the pews were filled, but the hearts were empty. So it was like just this kind of like stale, church that was there. Yeah, and so that was like my first impressions of it. But then once I got talking to the people, they're such loving, caring people. Mm.
And so, Jameson, at this point, what do? You've got this, it's an older building, it's older people, you've got this community, but where do you start with that?
So one of my mentors sat me down, and I asked the same question, and because there was just there was so much I wanted to do, so much I feel like I had to do, but I had to ask myself, was it the right thing that I had to do at the time? So the first thing I had to do was devote myself to prayer. I had to devote myself to prayer, and just praying for God's will, building up my relationship with God, and making sure I stay connected with Him. The reason why is because I needed to know that when I step out in faith, that the people that I encounter to seek wisdom from is God sent, and not my own understanding, and not relying on my own strengths. And so once I continue to pray that prayer, I also seek out advice. And so one of my mentors sat me down, and he goes, when you build a house, the first thing you look for is tools, right? The first thing you look for is not the contract or the best builders or anything. The first thing you look for is the land, right? And so, when you look at the land, you assess the land. If it's good soil, is it bad soil? Is the land good for location? Things like that. And so then he told me, get to know the land. So I had to know the context of my church members. I had to know why there were no young people. I had to know their history. I had to know their background. And he said, even if it takes me 6 months, and that's all I did, that's all I need to do. I don't need to go out, connect with community, if connect with the community or start reaching the young people and all that. I can do that if I want to. But the most important thing that he advised me was get to know your church members. Visit them once. Once you visit them once, visit them again. ask those questions for you to really get the context or the big picture of where the church is at spiritually, even relationally as well. That was the foundation of where it all started, was prayer, advice, and then getting to know the context of the church.
And I guess, Jameson, last time I was out there, I was chatting to some of the original people who were part of the church when you arrived. And one of the things because I said, how did this happen? Because I looked at a congregation, I've showed the pictures here at the symposium, congregation of cross generations, there's young people, there's all kinds of backgrounds. And they talked about your love for them and how you just painted pictures of God's love for Dubbo. And they just trusted. So I guess your visitation builds up the trust. So you're building up trust, but at the same time, you're laying seeds for something bigger. How did you go about it? Because obviously you painted a picture of mission in a church that wasn't connecting with this community. You've painted a picture of a different way of being church. Tell me about that little part of the process. What does that vision casting look like?
So, well, it came down to when I looked at how Jesus did it. Jesus had a mission when he came, and then with that mission, he showed his disciples, how to apply that mission. Right? And then once he showed the disciples, then he partnered with them. He's all right. Now you do it, and I'll watch. All right. Well, first he said, well, I'll do it, you watch. And then later on he says, all right, now you guys go. You guys do it and I'll watch. All right. And then after that he says, all right, you guys are good to go. All right. And so me, the state of where the church was at is that no one was really doing anything that was impacting the mission of the church, because there was no mission, there was no vision. And so what I needed to do was, instead of me actually coming in and stepping into the church and telling them, hey, all right, I visited you guys, this is what we need to do. This is our vision. God has given me this vision. Let's do it. Because to me, like in my experience, that's dictating. And so what I actually had to do was I actually had to sit them down as a church. And then I said, what is God calling our church to be here in the context of Dubbo? What is God calling our church to do here in the context of Dubbo? And so we had to sit down together, and then the church, through prayer, through constant meetings, some of our business meetings, we had nothing on the agenda, just tackling what's our vision, And so we actually had to formulate that together. We had to wrestle together. Rather than me saying, this is what we should do, this is what we need to be, it's actually empowering them to actually start thinking, what do we want to be? What do we want to be here in this church? And so then the vision of the church actually comes from them. And so when they actually come up with the vision, right, in what they want to be, what they see themselves to be, then me as a pastor, I now get to hold them accountable. Right? You guys came up with this vision. Right? What are we doing as a church to head in that direction? How do your roles contribute to that? And then that's where it all came through. And the vision, it took about 3 or 4 months to formulate. And so it wasn't something that just happened overnight. And so that comes with a lot of prayer. Once again, even visiting, when you're visiting, there are members that didn't come. You still visit and you share with them the experience. Hey, this is where we're at. What do you think? What's your input? In what the vision statement of our church. Going back to the business meeting, talking about the vision. Hey, I visited some members. They said, they should do this. Oh, we should be this, and it's and then you start to see how the Holy Spirit starts uniting the members. Uniting the members in vision. And it's the most beautiful thing when everyone comes together and you've summarized the vision. You say, this is what I think you guys are saying. Do you agree with this? And that's when the church is, yes, that is what we want to be. And we praise the Lord. And that comes, and that's a Holy Spirit thing. Right? And what I've seen is such a value is when we as pastors don't come and dictate this is what we're going to do, but actually empower the church to be what they've been called to be. Right? You start to see the Holy Spirit move in ways that you never expected. And so when it came to vision tackling, it was actually about just how I, as a pastor, facilitates those conversations in empowering the church to come up with a vision. And that's where we went from there.
That's wonderful. Jameson, I talked to one of your older ladies who's one of the leaders there, and she described for me a meeting where she said basically she got challenged. Either she was going to give the rest of her life to talking about Jesus and sitting with her friends, or she said Jameson described what it could be to change Dubbo and take Jesus to Dubbo and bring Dubbo to Jesus. And she said he described this picture, and she said I sat there thinking, what am I going to give the rest of my life to? And she said, I'm so glad we went the way we went. And I guess I was just inspired by the enthusiasm. But this is not just a short-term burst, Jameson. You've 6 years at this, and where you could have taken calls to other places more exciting in youth ministry jobs and things, but Dubbo became what you were intent on. How do you keep that vision there over the long period? How do you keep that refocusing? Because this wasn't just a short-term, let's go for it. It's over a period of years. You've just kept that focus. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Look, first thing I will say is when we were called to a place like Dubbo, I've never heard of Dubbo before. Never. I didn't even know there was a zoo out here, like in the middle of the country, like the countryside. There's just no idea. We knew no one out here. We came here, as I described the church, of what it was, what it looked like. But we truly believe God called us here for a season, right? And when I say season, when it comes to building, culture, instilling vision, doing mission, it's not gonna be a year thing. And so I made sure that when Hayley and I, when we made sure that we were stepping into this, we're going to be here at least for 3 years, right? And so because for a church like Dubbo, that was hardly anything was, there wasn't much direction. There wasn't much anything that was empowering this church to step into their true calling and their true potential that God has for them. For a church like this, that didn't have a strong foundation, it would mean nothing for me to come and just work here for a year and then get a better calling somewhere else, And so I had to truly believe God has called me here for a season, and that season can look like at least 3 weeks. Oh, sorry, 3 years.
Yes.
Yeah, it can look like 3 years. And so in those 3 years, right, did I get, I got calls to be a youth director. I got calls to pastor at bigger churches. I got calls, I had other calling opportunities. And was it tempting? Yes. I would have loved to go. My first year out, I got a call to be a youth director at one of our big conferences in our country. And youth director of just youth ministry is my true passion, right? That's my drive. So you can imagine how tempting that was for me. But I looked at the situation of the church. I looked at Jesus being the head of the church, yes. And, as a pastor to come in and to help this church build it, to build it up, working alongside with Christ, so that it can impact the community, bring more people to the kingdom. What good would it have done if I just left? That was just my thinking. So, so in my first year, I said, look, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to say no because it's not our time. It's not our time to leave yet. My second year, I get another calling to go somewhere else. My third year, I get another calling. And, I'm like, it just didn't make sense to just jump in, make a few plans and go, and so we chose to commit to building this, and God knows when it's our time to leave. Yeah? And so to continue that culture, first it came to commitment, right? To instill that vision, it came to commitment, right? For the long run. So that was the first thing. The second thing was one of my other mentors said to me, sing the same song, right? So we know that when we sing songs, we remember it, right? We remember the song, the whatever, ABC, it sounds weird, but we don't sing the tune, right? But one of my mentors said to me, sing the same song. What does that mean? It means that in the local church context, when it comes to your vision statement, right? Keep singing that song until it's ingrained in their mind, right? So when you preach it, you sing it. When you're going out talking, visiting, you're singing it. When you do Bible studies, you're singing it. In your board meetings, you're singing that same song. And so we just kept singing that song, right, of the vision statement for Dubbo in every way possible. And it had to start with me. Right? And I'll tell you now, it took 3 years for me to sit in a board meeting, right? After establishing our vision statement in the first year, it took 3 years for me to sit in a board meeting and say, hey guys, what's our vision statement? And they all said it together. It took 3 years. And so to continue to once again continue the vision, right? It's about singing that same song. So continue to share that with all the church members as much as you can. Get it plastered, get it written down, put it in your bulletin in whatever way possible. And also the last thing is when it came to our meetings, right? I hated board meetings. I used to hate board meetings and business meetings. Until one of my mentors said to me, they are not board meetings are not boring meetings. They're actually opportunities for mission. And the moment he said that to me, that completely transformed what board meetings meant. Right? That these board meetings and business meetings, opportunities for mission. And so when it comes to board meetings and business meetings, they're actually spaces where you can get things happening that contributes to the vision, right? And so, when there are projects and plans and activities and socials and all these things that you want to do for your church, it's actually bringing all those 20 ideas and say, all right, which of these ideas actually contribute to the vision of the church? And so actually turning those board meetings into opportunities for mission. One thing that I actually chose to do for myself, which was never in the standard of these meetings, the format of these meetings, was something that I like to call church strategy. So in every meeting that we had, I made sure we had a segment there called church strategy. And we always talk about where our church was at. Is our church achieving the mission, the mission that we have as a church? Are we in line with the direction of our vision? What are some things that we need to do as a church? What are some things that you can see that we can improve on as a church to continue to head into our vision statement? And so having that section in those meetings, as bad as it is, it's a priority. And sometimes we didn't even get to our agenda items. Like, as long as we covered our church strategy, we know we're at, that's okay. Right?
You got the big item.
Yeah, you've got the big item. The church strategy, don't compromise that. Because the more that you talk about it, the more you're building a stronger foundation for your church.
Jay, some really good tips there, and I'm inspired by what God has done in and through you and Hayley and Dubbo, and what God has done and is doing in and through Dubbo Church and the way it's connecting with the community. And there's lots more stories to share. And I know you're generous with your time, but if an Avondale student gets called to a town like Dubbo, can I give them your email address to get in contact if they've got any questions?
Absolutely.
And and what you've done there is inspiring. And if I'm saying this too soon, we can cut this little piece out of the interview. But God's calling you to another season of ministry. Once again, it's another country region that you're heading to. You're leaving Dubbo in a place where it's outward focus, and a lot of things have happened. But God bless in the next challenge where it's another country church. And Jay, thanks for your time to chat with us. Just quickly, you're an Avondale student. You're about to graduate. You get sent to what seems to be a dead-end country town. One piece of advice to sum up, Jay.
Oh, man. One piece of advice. You get called to a country town. If there's one piece of advice that I can encourage you all with, it's remain faithful to where God has called you.
That's perfect. If there's one sentence that we take out of the interview, God's call, it's God's calling. He calls you. It's his children. Dubbo's his town. You're his servant. Jay, thank you for spending the time with us today. We recorded this on a Thursday morning. It's going to be shown on the Sabbath morning. You'll be preaching, doing your thing, but at our mission symposium, we'll say a prayer for you. We'll say a prayer for you and Hayley and your family. We'll say a prayer for Dubbo, and we'll say a prayer for what God continues to do in and through you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. God bless.
Hey, Jameson, I've just entered the record. Thanks for doing that. That was perfect. That's exactly.
Oh,
Now,
I hope that helped.
now, is it public knowledge that you're moving on or not?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I thought it was because I knew that Paul Macquarie knew about it, but I didn't want to.
Yeah. No, it's.
I would chop that bit off if need be, but I'll leave that bit in there because perfect. Appreciate it. Now, in all seriousness, it's not just an interview, Jameson, because what you've done is inspiring. And the way God's used you, the way God's worked in and through you. As I say, I was amazed when I drove out to Dubbo and saw all these people. It was absolutely wonderful.
Oh man, praise the Lord. Yeah, and the great thing is another pastor who's come in. I'm able to do a handover.
Yes.
And it took us a long time to find someone who could. That God's calling to come and lead a church like Dubbo that's in a growing season, so now he's leading it so well, and the churches, even from the time that you came, the churches they're still pulling out rows of seats for people there. So they're actually planning to build a new church.
That's wonderful.
Just too small now. So. God is doing some great things here, and it's been such a blessing to be part of this journey. I hope this interview helps.
It's ideal. I appreciate it. Your focus on prayer, your focus on just getting to know the people, your focus on a vision that's established together, rather than just walk in and say we've got to turn into this. It's where we're going together. I think that's just all really important building blocks. I'm going to grab those points and I'll make a PowerPoint that. At the end of our interview, we'll just go, hey, here's the main points to think through. Very helpful, Jay. Appreciate it. Thanks for making the time available today.
All right, Brendan. God bless.
Thanks, mate. Go well.
That's perfect. There's one sentence that we take out of you. It's God's call. As I say, it would have been great to have Jay here. He's actually speaking at a youth rally today. If you head out to Dubbo, you'll find a vibrant church where 6 years ago there wasn't. You'll find them working on a church plant, and Wayne's funding it, but the Adventist mission funding the Indigenous plants out of Dubbo. As I say, for some people it might look like you've been sent to a dead end. Reality is there's people there, and it's 6 years ago Jay sat in Mission Symposium, not knowing that Dubbo was where he was going to get put. Who knows what story God will write with you. So, when you look at that, when you listen to Jay, and And if I can double you one more time, and you've done excellent jumping through those things, by the way, really appreciate it. If I can double you one more time, there's a slide in that slides that showed them on I had those Dubbo pictures. The last slide shows some principles I took out of there. But what principles did you grab out of Jay's talk? If you were saying, hey, this is principles we could take from, you might have found some different ones than what I found. But so it starts with prayer, and Jay seriously is someone who prays a lot about direction. Building relationships, trust. He poured a lot of energy to visit again, to build the trust. And we often talk about, change happens at the speed of trust. And so for Jay, it was good that time in discussing the initial vision. He talked about what the church is to be, what the church is to do. He did all that before they got the how part. What church is to be, what church to do, and how long did it take him? 3 years. 3 years until that bit was done. He modelled it. He was already, while he was doing this in the Dubbo Church, he already had that brotherhood group with Russia, that first meeting in his home, where he was already making connections with people that he was coming into contact with. So he was being a missional person already. He wasn't just sitting back going, I'm going to wait for the church to get to this point. It was, hey, I'm working with this group, but in my own life, there's nothing that stops me now doing this in my lounge room. And that's where, and now that they're all integrated, some of those pictures you saw earlier were in the actual church for all those guys doing their gym work, hall of the church. So now they're integrated, but he modelled what it was to missional. And he celebrates it. And when I was up there in the year, Jay gets up there and his sermon is what's it look like to be missional. And so he casts vision, he models vision, he celebrates vision, and and he's committed to it. As I say, for Jay, it wasn't I'm here to fill in the time. If God has called me here, then I'm going to do what God has called me to do. Because unless I feel deeply compelled I'm supposed to be somewhere else, this is where I'm supposed to be. As I say, in our church system, there's all kinds of ways it works. Jack could be youth director and would have loved it, and he's still speaking youth rally and whatnot. But for Dave, he's saying, this is what God called me to. I'm in here for the long haul to the community. Thank you, man. He's got a comment.
We have a vote here who wants to hear Henry. I'm sorry. You alluded to one of the principles, but I think it's important. The idea of penmanship. He was there for 6 years. The first 3 years it didn't happen. So, yeah, if we want to be agents of change, we have to be there for the long haul.
Yeah, good point. And it's committed for the long haul. As I say, our church system, I got told when I was interns don't say no. But if you can say this is what God's calling me to do, I stayed in my first church, I got called for 10 years, Jay's just in the 6 years. If you, as an intern, if you say this is what God called me to do, it's going to work. And so, yeah, it is tenure, it is sticking to it, it is when it gets tough, not just, and if you become a youth director, God bless you. Jay could have been, but he goes, this is what God has put me here for. Jay, take a call now, and we didn't continue the interview. When I say the continue interview, when I said goodbye to Jay, we then chatted about handover, because he's got the next guy already there at the moment, so they're having a whole period of handover. So when Jay leaves, it's not as if the church just goes, here's the next person. We're working with Jay at the moment. So I think it's a great model for handover. Jay's going to be a bit more